going to be a bumpy night.
What's going on, guys? This is the Laugh Bunker podcast. My name is Josh. Paul, how's everything going? Episode number 5.
Good. Yeah.
Been
a while.
Yeah, it's been a little while. It's June 15th. It is a Monday early evening. Man. Can you say we've taken a little break just because it seemed appropriate for the things that are going on. Not just Corona, but we have a lot of things going on in the world that we need to kind of just take a break and let that happen and let it
Totally.
let it play out the way it needs to play out, and then we could get back to some.
Well, I think it's just an act of respect when people are sad and hurting.
Yeah,
it's not a time. It's a time to join together, and it was a bizarre couple of weeks to go from COVID and then me starting the new job back working at night. It was a very interesting. My second day of work was going to work when there was a protest behind the Capitol building. And I was a little hesitant and going in. There were people leaving with signs. There was a lot of unkind talking and different things like that. And I pulled in, and the one thing about being back to work that's been great is just to be really, even though we have the mask on, and I always wear the red bandana because I like, it's more cowboy and whatever. It just, and I can breathe through it. But just to be able to joke with people and just everyone coming in and just, it's been fun. It's been nice to actually be able to put a smile on someone's face and make their day a little better if I could. So I was in the lobby, and these two African-American gentlemen came in, and they had been protesting behind, and I greeted them. I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And they said, "Whatever." And I said, "Where are you from?" And they said, "Minneapolis." So I went up to them, and I said, "Listen, I'm going to tell you what. We're not talking Minnesota Viking stuff here." And they just, the conversation went left and right, and I'm not kidding you. We had the great laugh because they expected something, and it just showed camaraderie. And I mean, I bullshitted with those guys for 3 days, and they were so cool. And even talked with the one gentleman whose cousin had been shot by a Minneapolis policeman.
Oh wow!
And he had explained to me the whole thing. But anyway, it just went. And it was funny. Last Sunday, I felt very sad because of everything. I'm very empathetic, and I have friends everywhere. Do you know what I mean? On every angle, and I just hate when people are hurting. And I sat in my chair and watched movies, and I don't do this on Sunday. And I was also exhausted from working for 5 days. And I put on the Shawshank Redemption came on, and I just watched the movie, and that end with Red getting on the bus, and it's just so freaking powerful how when that film was made was in some of the roughest times of race relations up to today, and yet it was about friendship and loyalty and love, and and also the definition of good and evil.
Yeah, a very powerful movie.
Good and evil. So, anyway, we're going to talk about that film today, and I think it's very powerful, and it's funny. Then Monty Python came on. I haven't seen Monty Python since the 70s, and I don't watch sketch comedy hardly because it's become very cynical. It's not fun. Well, I was laughing out loud, and my wife came down and was making sure that I was okay, and she loves Monty Python, obviously, and because it's British theatrical, you know what I mean. So anyway, after that, I just was like, just cheered me up. I mean, something about the power of just escaping for a few minutes, and it's been good, and it's been very productive, and so I'm finally getting on a good ball. Now, what about you? You're not working for a while, huh?
No, I'm not working for a while. I'm going to be working from home for quite some time. I would say probably till mid to late fall. but yeah, I think lately it's just I moved to a new place. I set up everything here, so we finally settled in. Everything's I like this den area that I'm in right now. Um, has been, it's kind of like my little project to get put together, and it's going to be I got a little corner of it where it's this is like where we're doing our thing. And in other podcasts, like the Make Complex podcast that I do. But no, it's been great. I mean, as far as like the world is and what's going on, yeah, you kind of have to just let it play out, let the emotions go, let people do what they need to do, and let the streets basically say what they got to say, and that's what they're doing right now. And everybody's just got to listen. And so, it's high emotion time, but you just got to let everything kind of like play out, settle, and then
Well,
pick up the pieces.
There's one thing we got all in common,
Yeah.
and that's called humanity. And when
Yeah.
you get humanity, that virus just fucks you up. When the doctor tells you you're a human, you're like, is there hope? And he said, no. He said, no, you're screwed up.
Yeah.
So what I like about it is that we can all come together. And, it's an interesting time being old, and growing up in Detroit and living in Chicago and different areas. It's and working, for many years on the north side with the poor and different things. And you just get to know people's stories. And I've come to this conclusion that everybody just, other than a couple people in life, everybody just wants to have a good time. Man, if people want to laugh, I mean, because of my lifestyle in the past, let's say, I'll just tell you this one thing. There was a period of time where we were doing some serious drugs, and this is back in the 80s. And, this was back in the Izod era. Izod, the preppy. And just because of my personality, we would end up partying in certain parts of town where we were the only white people in town. And we would become friends with people, and we'd be barbecuing and hanging out. Yeah. And people would, like, African American people would be driving down the street and looking at they're like, what? They couldn't believe it. But we would always have a time of our life. So I've been very fortunate in my life to party with just about every kind of people there are. And I'm telling you what, there's killer people everywhere. And if you meet someone who's not cool, all you got to do is make one step, and there's a cool person.
The other way. Yeah.
It's incredible. And that's and we have to also, dude, we have to be responsible for what we do, and we have to be responsible for what our friends do.
Yeah.
We're the guards of community.
Yeah.
What are your friends doing? Hey, quit being an asshole. You know what I mean? It's just simple stuff. And but anyway, it's been different, yes.
It's been different.
After my monologue, I'll get off my soapbox. There you go.
No, it's true, and I think it. It's obviously a lot of tragedies and a lot of reflecting, and then you're seeing that even within the police department, how a lot of them are kind of uniting with some of the protesters, and it does feel a little different. What's going on now compared to all the other times that stuff like this has come up. This one seems a little bit different, like where everybody's kind of in unison, that there's no getting what happened wrong, or any points of view that you can pick apart what happened, but what kind of set this whole thing off. But I think people, all in all, just kind of want to get along with each other and live their lives and have fun. And it really don't matter. It doesn't really. Most people, I don't really care who the other person they're having a good time with looks like or what they do. You know what I mean? It's just, as long as they're good people, people like to hang out with good people.
Well, you know what? Yeah. And for my own sake, being a person, faith in the church and whatever, I'm only given two commands, and that's to love God more than myself, which is humility. And can you imagine if we got some fucking humility in this world? Holy cow, that would be dangerous for everybody's ego. And then is to love others more than myself. Yeah. And that's to be kind. And I guess, I don't know what I can do for the world, but I can tell you what, if you come in contact with me, we're going to have a good time. And even at our hotel, and we worked on certain weekends when there might be a rougher crowd, but I tell you what, there wasn't anybody in that hotel that I wasn't going to bust my ass for to have a good time. And there were people that would come in and would be maybe very judgmental. Unfortunately, the way I look, I do have that military, ex-police look or whatever. But when I would see when I would get the look or anything, I would be like, hey, you know what? Screw you, man. I'm going to break you. We're laughing. And I would work it for days sometimes, and I would. And it's, that little thing, man, people just, that whole, like if you ever were to have a hotel, I mean, that area from that bell desk, that is from valet to bell, that is your win or lose.
Yeah.
And to make people not be greeting and keeping it up, it's so important. And probably in the old days, when that hotel first opened, the hotel where I'm at now, imagine how many people were in all those slots of service when people came in.
Yeah.
Where will these people? Where will these people? What kind of jobs will there be in the hotel? Will there be bellmen anymore? Will everything be automated? I mean,
I think
our whole world is changing.
I think eventually things will move towards automation. I don't think there's any way of stopping that. I think distance yourself from it. Try to get away from it as fast as you can, and obviously the coronavirus is going to change how we handle things, and with cleanliness and what jobs are necessary and what aren't. Staffing is going to be an issue. It's gonna really affect a lot of jobs and a lot of people's lives for quite a while, and
Well, I just hope that everybody, that what it is, if we're going to make changes, then let's make changes based on people and not politics. Yeah. Let's say what's going to make people's lives great.
It's hard. That's what it should be. With social media and everything, and the way media is, everything's politicized. Everything's like, it's unfortunate. Like everything gets twisted in some way. And it's always kind of been like that, but even more so now with the internet.
Well, yeah, and now the control that can come from other countries from the internet, or mega donors or whatever. I mean, really, the truth is, who's running this? I mean, the 1% runs the place, and that's what it is. And so for me to be a 58-year-old white guy, I should be running this shit, and I'm not. The mountain is on me. So anyway, hey, whatever. Having a good time.
What have you been watching this past week or two?
Well, branching out. Okay, my wife is in. First of all, we'll go with my wife. She watches good stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, her judgment, her talent is she gets it all. So she's been watching this show Hannibal with Mads Mikkelsen.
He's great,
and he plays Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah,
and he also was in the Bond movie 2006, I think, Casino Royale with Greg. And he played a great bad guy.
Yeah,
because his presence is so big.
He plays a great good guy. He's just a great actor. He was in one of the latest Star Wars movies. He was like a hero working on the other side. He had a great role.
My Star Wars thing is, I'm a little weak on it.
He was on Rogue One.
Was he that desperate in his life? Is that what that was? He wasn't getting to go. Yeah, I gotta pay the bill, man.
That's a good movie. That's a good movie. Let's see what else. He was on Valhalla Rising. Did you ever watch that?
No, but the Viking, yes.
The Viking one. That one's a good one.
Yeah. So, what was your introduction to the Hannibal Lecter? Was it Silence of the Lambs? Was it Manhunter? Or was it the third one? I mean, are you familiar with the series?
Valhalla Rising, great movie. I would definitely recommend it. I think that one of Matt's great performances right there. Barely says a word.
What was your introduction to the Hannibal Lecter or Silence of the Lamb? What movies have you seen in the series?
I think they went
prequel.
I've seen most of them. I've seen.
Okay,
I would say I've seen the majority of them, if not all of them.
Did you see Manhunter?
No, I never saw Manhunt.
Okay,
Manhunter. No.
That's worth watching. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it's with William Peterson.
Yeah.
Is he from the CSI? He's from the one of those cops. I think he's from a forensic show. I think it is that. But he's a Chicago actor.
Right. Wow.
Stage actor. And
I'll check that one out.
The guy who plays the bad guy, you'll recognize him too. But that's Hannibal Lecter, but then I didn't see that till after I saw Silence of the Lambs with obviously Anthony Hopkins and
then they have Hannibal, then they have Red Dragon.
Yes.
With Ralph Fiennes, or no,
yeah.
Not Ralph Fiennes, the other one.
Ray Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes. What else?
And Ray Liotta gets his brain eaten.
Yeah, he gets his brain eaten. The redheaded, what's her name?
And didn't she get an Oscar 2 years ago for a role? I think
she did. Yeah, she did.
I'm having brain because I spent all my reading up on Shawshank Redemption.
No. Okay, yes, I have seen most of the Hannibal series. But yeah, Mads is in his is in the series right now, the televised series, right?
Yes, which I have. You know, I'm not a TV. I'm just not a series guy as much. Like we always talk about that, but I will sit in. Like I like to have maybe a glass of wine or a beer, and I will sit in and talk with my. Watch with my wife. My wife is continually having to do schoolwork. I mean, even now she has to create all her classes for the fall for online, and she's doing some Macbeth work.
Oh, that's
good. So I always watches. She watches Hannibal, but she loves a lot of that Danish police investigative, that Scandinavian, the British investigative shows. You know what I'm talking about?
Does she like period pieces too? Any of those shows like Downton Abbey or Downton Abbey? And all that?
Who doesn't? I mean, truth is, I think I just did The Big Burn when they did it a couple of weekends ago because I love that because they're the best actors.
Yeah,
they're all great.
There's a show I've been looking to check out. It's on Hulu. I don't know if you've been able to see any trailers for it. I think it's called The Great. It's with Al Fanning and Nicholas Hoult. It's kind of like a period piece. It's set in the 1600s or whatever, England. It's got a little bit of an edge to it. It's not like Downton Abbey. The way it's shot, high def, everything looks really good. So I would recommend The Great. It's on Hulu.
Send me a link. I was watching a little bit of the Jack Ryan.
My wife loves that one. Yeah,
he's good. They've got good conflict. I'm only a couple episodes in, so I'm not making a determined. But the truth is, I've been spending time with this 30 for 30 stuff again.
Same. Me and my wife have been showing. She never knew about 30 for 30s. I've been just catching up on a bunch of them.
Well, this push right now that's been on has been just very nostalgic for me.
Yeah.
I mean, so we went from the Jordan, which we had discussed. I was there.
Yeah.
And then the Lance Armstrong, which before Lance Armstrong, the American cycling hero was Greg LeMond.
Yeah.
Greg LeMond's from California. He won the Tour de France for a couple years. Also, he overcame being shot with a shotgun by his brother-in-law hunting turkey up in Lincoln, California. He has pellets. Number 2s now.
Still in his body?
They're in his lining of his heart. And he won the Tour de France. And there was a lot of he was fighting his teammate, like you saw with Lance Armstrong, everybody supports one guy. Well, it was supposed to be Greg LeMond's turn, but Bernard Hinault, the French guy who was called the Badger, teammate, beat him. And then for 2 or 3 years, the rivalry was incredible. During that time, I was cycling a lot myself because after my dad had his heart attack thing, I had to do aerobics. And so Greg LeMond, and there was a friend of mine named Bob Middleton.
And that was a big inspiration for you.
Oh, he's incredible. I mean, he changed the focus of my life for a few years. He's passed away too. He passed away 2 years ago of brain cancer. But he was a Christian guy, the nicest guy. Unless he was on a bike, then he would run your ass off the road to win. I mean, he would knock people over. He was just so we would get up in the mornings during those years, and we would race 20 miles. Then we would ride 18 miles to work, 18 miles back, and as with everything I do in my life, it became like crazy.
Yeah.
We flew out here and rode bikes from Oceanside to Carmel, California.
Yeah.
And so, but I've always had have you ever been on a bike, cycling or anything?
Not to that extent. No, I mean just like
you know how your legs can burn if you're pushing it, your legs burn. Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about Yosemite.
Yeah,
the long drive. I rode bikes over there for a little bit when I was younger. Yeah, uphill when I was younger, and yeah, it's a workout. It's definitely.
Oh, it's. I think the Tour de France is probably the toughest event there is. I mean, I know people do 24 hours. I've done 24-hour races myself, this and that. But that's one day. That's 3 weeks. And it's just suffering. I mean, they're just on the level, and that's why the drug use is so bad. Moving on to the Lance Armstrong 30 by 30.
Did you enjoy it? I haven't caught that one yet, but did you enjoy that one?
There is no doubt that all these people are cut out of the same cloth. Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Lance Armstrong, Muhammad Ali. It doesn't matter who you are, man. They're above everything. And you're not going to beat these guys because they're able to take personal insult and turn it into a motivational device that will allow them to suffer. Now,
and well, what angle did they take in there? Because we'll get to the Bruce Lee one because I saw that one.
Well, he confessed to Oprah about the steroids. I knew he was on steroids because he's training with the doctor.
Or what was he on?
No, well, so before he had his cancer, he was on a minor team, and he had won a world championship, was starting to move up. He was cycling with stage 3 cancer. He had quarter-sized lungs, quarter-sized tumors in his lungs, like 25. He had it on the brain. He had to have surgery to have cancer moved from his brain. Okay? Yeah. He's the poster boy for chemotherapy. Look what
I didn't know it was spread throughout his body that much.
So he had all this surgery in fall, and in January, February, he's cycling with the team. Now he didn't work through the whole thing, but still, you know, he's just that kind of person. But when he started working, well, I mean, the drugs have involved in cycling goes back to the 1890s. Like, I mean, they were using cocaine and water in the early 1900s. So this has been going on.
There's a doping documentary on Netflix. I think it should still be on there. I think it's called Icarus. Did you ever watch it?
Oh yes, I did see that.
Yeah. I think it has to do with cycling too.
You know, I mean, hey, it's in the NFL.
It's in every sport.
They just know how to beat it. I mean, that's just the way it is. But
if you have the money and the right scientists, the right drugs, you can beat most tests.
So Lance Armstrong, and then the 30-30s went Bruce Lee, and then it went back to the steroids with Sosa and McGuire. So we'll go through all these. So the Lance Armstrong, what was interesting, he's confessed. And we all know he's a cheater and whatever, but even to do what he did on steroids is inhuman.
Yeah.
That being said, then you have the other side. Live strong, the whole cancer, awareness. Our friend Rudy, who went through the same thing, 19, remission, 24, surgery, chemo, radiation. I asked him about the turnaround because I remember he's the only one I respect hiking kind of because he's a badass and I couldn't shake him. But he said the turnaround for him was 2 or 3 years. Now he wasn't on that aerobic level and everything. And another thing, Lance Armstrong comes from the triathlete, Ironman, the massive back from swimming. The cancer took all his muscle away, and that obviously still had the eternal engine with a smaller frame, obviously able to go. Anyway, the question comes down, what do we think of this guy? He cheated, lied. He wrecked people's careers.
Yeah, I think
So-
the thing that sets him apart a little bit, and I don't really fault him for the drug use because I think I think they even talked about like from Lance Armstrong, you have to go down 20 people down the top 20 list,
Exactly.
and almost all 20 are on some form of performance enhancer. So I don't fault him for the drugs. I think a lot of people do criticize him though for going after people, and and like his kind
He
of
was
his
protecting a fortune.
yeah.
At one time, listen, I don't know if you see, you're young, but that yellow band that was sold,
Yeah.
that was everywhere in the freaking
Well,
world.
I remember
500 million of them or something. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I
So,
remember. He did it. He's done a lot of good for sure,
So
and
this
I don't
is what-
fault him for that. He's a human being. He's a competitor.
but can he be redeemed that because of Livestrong and the cancer program, Rudy said the amount of lives saved now, I mean, cancer treatment is on a winning level because of this foundation. So the question is it okay? Then we're talking about even artistically the cancellation culture. If someone does really good and does a mistake, where are we at? What are the
At this point, you're canceled. It doesn't matter what you did, and
Well,
it doesn't
no, I
matter.
understand,
Doesn't matter how long ago.
but do we hold our athletes on that same level? Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame because they say he bet on the game.
On
I'm sure
the
Mike
games,
Ford bet on the games too. He guy bet on everything in the world.
I'm sure a lot of people bet on
So
the games. Yeah.
it's worth watching. It was part of my life for a while. A lot of these have been very nostalgic. The Bruce Lee a little less, but yeah, we grew up watching Kung Fu, the Green Hornet. We all kicked one another. I mean, we all took martial arts because of him. And then the last one, which was yesterday, we'll go back to Bruce Lee, but the one that was last night was the Sosa McGuire, and it goes back to the cheating thing a little bit. And it was interesting.
I haven't seen that one yet either, so I saw those two to catch up. I watched the eating competition one with what's his name? The Japanese guy? I forgot his name. I watched the Magic Shaquille. I watched that one. The relationship right there. I watched. What else did I see? When the garden was eaten. I think it was a Michael Rappaport produced, directed about the garden and about the Knicks. I think it was like the 72, 73, 76 Knicks.
Yeah, Phil Jackson was on that team.
Yeah, he was on that team. That was a great documentary. I actually really enjoyed that one. And then the Bruce Lee one. So I mean. You were a fan of Bruce Lee. You got inspired by him. I was a fan. Grew up with Bruce Lee movies.
You got to put it. I mean, there's these iconic people, and plus, he did adapt his martial arts. I mean, martial. I mean, we read his books, and he was right. The boxing. I mean, he was a fan of Western boxing, but then he also said if the wrestler can take the punch, you're going to lose. Yeah. And that really feeds right into definitely the Brazilian jiu-jitsu movement. Yeah. And, would you have MMA without Bruce Lee and the kickboxing or not?
I don't know. I think, I don't know if you would have it to what it is today. I think eventually... other combat sports like jiu-jitsu and all that would have found their home in mainstream at some point, because the family was practicing even before Bruce Lee. So I think eventually it didn't
seem to be and I guess it would be where you grew up. If you grew up maybe in areas that might have heavily Asian influence or immigration during when you were younger. But for me, it was really, the Green Hornet was really the show that we watched. And then you saw in the documentary how they chose David Carradine instead of Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
which imagine how valuable those episodes would be now if it was Bruce Lee for syndication or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I would say you'd have to put on it. There was a couple things I didn't know. I didn't know that he died at that girl's apartment.
I knew there were people around him. I remember hearing that there was another female involved, or there was a pill that he took, like it was a prescription like painkiller, ibuprofen style. I don't know. I heard some things that they went into depth about it, but even then, they didn't go too deep.
No. He's a protected icon, obviously.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's an issue. I guess I get it. The family's very protective of his image, and they have been, and rightfully so.
Even back to the Tarantino film.
Yeah,
last year. So, and that's not what I care about. But one thing that really stuck out to me, and I don't know if it was in my mind because I just watched Lance Armstrong steroids and whatever thing, but man, in Enter the Dragon, to maintain that kind of cutness, and if you look from Fists of Fury to Enter the Dragon, I mean, and to have the wide back, and I took steroids myself, and we can't say anything, but something in that physique was incredible for Enter the Dragon, and I was like, something's not, and he did die of it was a brain aneurysm, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, something in the brain, circulatory, and steroids raise your blood pressure through the roof.
Yeah. And
so anyway,
the weather was hot, he was drunk, probably on some type of, drugs, narcotics.
My wife looked up the death certificate, and it said, the original one said death by misadventure. So anyway, I think that above any type of whatever, the dude changed things, and his ability to just say, I'm not going to be beat. And even the concept of, be water, that you adapt to whatever you're put into, which fits right into socially right now. It's a phenomenal idea. And my wife is a big fan of Bruce Lee because of her brother and martial arts, and they were from Northern California. So obviously more influenced, and he's older than us a little bit. But yeah, I thought it was great. And then it segued in last night into the more steroids, into the Sosa and McGuire era. And which was interesting was that, and I had forgotten that 4 years earlier was the baseball strike where they closed the season. Yeah. And so through that, there was massive animosity, and people weren't going to the games and whatever. And you almost wonder if they needed to pump it up, like if it was programmed. But in '98, it broke records. We lived in Chicago at that time.
Yeah.
We lived, 5-6 blocks from right down the street. I mean, the buzz when it started getting up. In fact, on April 18th, 1998, they had one of the games that was being recorded, and my mom and my friend Ron T, who took me to all the Michael Jordan games, was at this game, and they showed the game in the documentary where we were at, and it was like 48, 49 home runs, whatever, and Sosa hit 1 and McGuire hit 2. But man, when you see that film, you go, these dudes are just like, holy cow, they look like they're going to explode. I mean, they're just so big. And McGuire did admit it, but Sammy Sosa would not.
Yeah. So you should see Sammy Sosa now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen him now lately?
Yeah.
Have you seen pictures of him lately?
He's been hanging out with Michael Jackson's hairstylist.
Yeah. So, no, I enjoy the 30 for 30s. I think they're well done. I love how they bring in different actors, or like even people that are not necessarily directors, telling stories and just different storytellers. I like how they bring that.
You almost get a more common man opinion instead of a professional doing it that maybe is too knowledgeable.
Yeah. I like how like Rappaport's when the garden was eaten. I enjoyed it and I enjoyed it from his take, because I know he's a passionate guy about sports and basketball. But he
and everything in life.
Yeah, and everything in life. So
Slovenian.
he's a big personality, but I like his he's not necessarily a director, but he's been in the business for a long time, actor. And just his take on it and putting it together, I thought was great. Bruce Lee's, I didn't get anything new from it. I didn't learn anything new from it.
I did a little bit, but having done martial arts as a younger man, whatever, you just read. And I'm a reader. If I'm going to get into something, I'm not going to. So,
I've seen some of I knew some of the stories already, and I would like to have seen a little bit more of who the guy was behind the camera, because I know he had the temper. They had marital issues because of his temper. He was the biggest star at one point in the U.S., even though he didn't live long to see it, and definitely in China. He was a partier. He was a big partier. He was a ladies' man, very good-looking guy. There was always rumors that he had mistresses, and the way he died, people like to conspiracy theories of it, if the Chinese mafia killed him or any of that. I think.
I don't think it was that, but
I think he went out like how
pushed it too much.
Yeah, I think like celebrities.
How old was he?
Like 30,
33 or something like that. 32,
something like that. Yeah.
Didn't his son die at the same age?
Yeah, pretty much.
But he was shot by. It's funny because his son was shot by he was killed by the cotton slug, not a bullet.
Yeah.
But it was too high propelled. I worked on background one time on one of these shows, and it's the one with Cool J and the white guy. What's his name? He was in Scent of a Woman. Chris. Whatever. Brain. Anyway.
Yeah, he was from Robin, Batman and Robin. And,
We shot.
Chris O'Donnell.
Yes, we shot thousands of rounds, and we were shooting real guns. Like I was shooting an M40, and they counted every single bullet was written on a piece of paper that was put in the cartridge, and every shell casing had to be counted and marked off before you left the place where you were standing. And then I asked the guy, I said, "Wow, that's kind of crazy." And the guy said. He goes, well, two things. He said, well, it's crazy because this stuff shoots, 50 feet. We got to find it. And he goes, number two, he said it all goes back to everything changed after Brandon Lee on set with dealing with any sort of guns or anything type
happen to your. And it was unfortunate. Even in the documentary, going back to it real quick, I never seen the funeral footage.
No, me either. Yeah, that was interesting.
I thought that was pretty eerie and kind of cool because you got to see the whole family, and just to see Brandon Lee and Shannon Lee as kids. That's got to be Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen. Hey, this is not your era, but Steve McQueen was like the man of the world in Hollywood for years, from Papillon. I mean, he's iconic.
Yeah. But just seeing that footage, I thought was pretty. I have never seen that footage before, but I thought that was pretty.
It's like when I saw the John Belushi footage of the funeral. This is obviously removed years back, but there's a finality to it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, it's like it's but it's very fascinating and an iconic figure. And the 30 for 30s have all been just pretty killer. I've enjoyed them. Yeah. Obviously, for me, more nostalgic. They're part of my the best my younger life as hopefully you'll have some of these going on. But then really the movie that has really stuck out, and we talked about it for the last 2 weeks, has been Shawshank Redemption. Yeah. And I'm going to make a statement here. I work with two people who have not seen Shawshank Redemption.
Now, I don't know how you can't. I don't know how you can't, because that's on TV like all day, every day.
Are they in a bunker or prison? Because I just don't see any way that it could be. But anyway, Shawshank Redemption came out in '94. Well,
let's show a quick little piece of the trailer real quick, and then we'll come right back.
Okay.
What was that?
By the power vested in me by the state of Maine, I hereby order you to serve 2 life sentences back to back, 1 for each of your victims. So be it.
Andy came to Shawshank Prison in 1947.
Why'd you do it?
I didn't, since you ask.
You gonna fit right in.
I must admit, I didn't think much of Andy first time I laid eyes on him. He had a quiet way about him. A walk and a talk that just wasn't normal around here.
All right, and that was a quick little snippet of Shawshank Redemption. Obviously, if you haven't seen it, I don't know, like Paul, you were saying, you've probably been living under a rock, but one of the greatest movies of all time. It's one of the best. Great cast, great everything, great story.
It's a fascinating story in itself. It came out in '94. It bombed, and the story itself it was written and directed by Frank Darabont. It's from Stephen King. Stephen King's probably has 80, 90 movies associated to him. Probably the only other person more influential in movies is William Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about it right there. But it really, we saw it at the theater, my wife and I. It was after my daughter was born. And Frank Darabont's background is all horror. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, he did, Nightmare on Elm Street script. The Walking Dead is his show. He did The Green Mile. He's done 3 Stephen King films. He bought the right for this film for $1 from Stephen King. But he wouldn't write it for a couple years because he didn't think he was ready. So he wrote the script in 8 weeks. First draft.
Yeah.
Gave the script to this lady who worked for Rob Reiner at Castle Rock. She said, this is the best thing. Rob Reiner was going to pay him $3 million cash on top of the price of the script to direct it himself, with Tom Cruise as the lead. But he denied it. It bombed at the theater. It brought in $16 million after the whole run. Yeah. It was bought by Ted Turner, who put it on TNT. And in 2008, it beat Godfather as the 3rd most watched film. Yeah. The first most, and this is by the Library of Congress. So It's a Wonderful Life by James Stewart. The Christmas classic is number 1. Number 2 is Wizard of the Oz. And number 3 is Shawshank Redemption. Those are the most watched films in the history of the world. And they all bombed at the theater. Yeah, I find that it got bad reviews. The people that went through it, and it's shot by Roger Deakins, who won the Oscar for 1917 and for Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. So, and Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, and even Bob Gunton, the warden. When he came to the Hollywood show, I had a chance to talk with him, and he said, "What's the big deal about me?" And I was like, "Dude, you're like watched more than Marlon Brando. I mean, you're like 3rd on the list in the history of people watching movies."
Yeah, probably one of the most iconic movie villains. And
it's a movie that's cross-cultural.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't someone, other than the 2 people who I don't know where they're from, didn't see it, but everybody else a little older has seen it, and everybody relates to it. Yeah. And that's final scene. It's interesting. They almost didn't put the final scene in where they meet on the beach. They were going to end it with the boss, and that would have, they had to have that union again. They had to have that, yeah. And it, even the Clancy Brown, who plays the evil guard. Yeah. I mean, he's just like, that was just iconic. Remember, you eat when we eat. And then the beatings and just and Morgan Freeman, his narration. And might not always lean to narration in a film because I'm a visual person and I like to be shown the story. Yeah. But I mean, can you find, there's no fault. I think you could honestly say it's a faultless film. Yeah. What would you say?
I would say it's a flawless film. It's one of those films that when you see it and it's on, you kind of have to just watch until it's over, and you don't even have to like be watching it the entire time because you know what's going to happen. A lot of us have seen it multiple times, and like you said, it's on TNT. It's almost like every time I turn on like a cable, I don't have cable anymore, but when I did go to my parents' house, it's Shawshank's on, and then you just watch it. It's just a great movie. I don't think there's really much you can say that's wrong with it. Every performance is great. The dialogue is amazing. The story of him, with his wife, and she gets killed when she's cheating on him, and then he goes to prison, and that whole struggle of like, I think everybody puts themselves in his shoes of like, how would I handle prison? I'd probably handle it like him. Hopefully not with the lady boys there.
It's just the guy. I don't remember what that guy's name is. He ended up in the wheelchair for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But no, it's a wonderful film. It's something that, and I always ask people, and you've heard me ask this question to people, hey, what's your favorite film? And they go, oh, I can't know. Well, obviously it's an emotional-based question depending on where you're at. But I always say it's something you stop at. What do you stop at?
Yeah.
When you're flicking the channel. Well,
Shawshank's
you know what?
One of those movies.
Shawshank, and for me, would be Forrest Gump. And here's an interesting story. Travolta, who was in Pulp Fiction in '94, turned down Forrest Gump.
That would have been different.
So,
that would have been
and Tom Hanks turned down Shawshank. But then went and worked with Darabont later on Green Mile.
Yeah.
So anyway, think about, but all those movies were in '94 for Oscars.
Yeah.
Those are all iconic. Now think about and we're always talking about the power of Oscars, but in the old days, man.
It works out. Yeah. It's crazy how it works out with people who go for roles who don't get them or turn them down. Back to the Future, I think Michael J. Fox had the same situation. They weren't going to go with Michael J. Fox. They were going to go with Eric Stoltz, I think. Was it Eric Stoltz was actually going to go for the role?
Yeah, because Eric Stoltz had that big breakthrough movie with Cher where he played the person with the deformity, like, you know what I'm talking about? Mask.
Yeah.
Before that. So
Tom Hanks in Shawshank, I could see him.
He still looks older.
Yeah.
Well, no, other people who were involved in the first thoughts of this movie were Robert Duvall, Gene Hackman, Clint Eastwood for playing different characters.
Uh-huh.
And it was anyway. The story it's a fascinating story. There's a great story in Vanity Fair. If anyone wants to Google it, I'm going to put the link up on our site tomorrow or the next day, so people can look. Because Anthony Hopkins said something one time. He says you can take the best script, you can take the best actors, the best director, cinematographer, and you're still putting dice in your hands and rolling to see if any magic lines up. And when films are magic, it's pretty much straight across the board that everybody says it. There's no questions. No one's saying, "Oh, I didn't like The Godfather." I hated Shawshank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's parts of it that are rough for certain people, obviously due to the assaults and different things. But the freedom and the friendship, and that one scene where they're all joking about all the crazy stuff that Tim Robbins did. Remember getting the beer on the roof, the album, and then he says this line. He says, Morgan Freeman says, but basically I just miss my friend.
Yeah.
And I really, and he said, this is the second time I've broken the law. And he goes, I doubt they'll look for an old crook. But hope, and that letter he reads about hope is a good thing. And I think for our time right now, that's what we have, because we're people, and that movie resonates huger than the screen right now for us.
I think so too.
I know for me, it saved my day. I was just totally bumming because I'd been watching the news and I felt sad, and I thought, and that's what I wrote on the little Twitter thing. I said, I want to be on that bus.
Yeah.
I want to be on that bus with Red and heading out, because that's what it's all about, man. That's what builds a great world.
It does.
All right, man.
You want to end it there? Let's end it there. That's a good. That's a good.
All right.
idea.
Well, hey, we ended it up on top on where it should be and what films should do for us. We apologize to our fans, all one of them, that you know, we took a few weeks, but we did it out of respect to every single person alive. And we're here to talk movies, and if you want to come in and escape with us, let's do it. But Josh, great to see you again, man. Glad everything's cool.
Yeah.
Have a good day, brother.
I'll see you soon. Take care, man.
Yeah. All right.